I am strangely good at making things fit. A trailer, a suitcase, a calendar, give me enough time, and I'll turn the whole thing into a game of Tetris. I don't know if that's my hyperactive brain or what, but I can get into this flow state where I'm trying to squeeze something productive out of every second of the day. Someone asks if I have time to meet, and I start rearranging things. I could take a shorter lunch, move this appointment, start earlier, finish later, answer the message from the car, record this after the kids go to bed. Technically, it all fits, and that phrase has gotten me into a lot of trouble because a calendar only shows the scheduled time. It doesn't show the preparation before it, the conversation you keep thinking about afterward, the emotional energy it actually takes, the drive home, the effort of shifting from counselor, pastor, or teacher back into husband and dad. The calendar says I have 15 minutes between things, but my body's still somewhere inside the last thing. And the hardest part about all of it is that I can usually explain every block. This person matters. That opportunity is good. This work needs to get finished. Even right now, I'm ashamed to admit that I'm writing this while my wife is doing the dishes after she made this amazing meal on our date night. Okay, I'll take this as a cue that I just need to go and be with her. Okay, but there have been seasons when I've looked at a calendar packed perfectly from edge to edge and realized I'd created a life with no room to actually live in. I was constantly moving, thinking about what came next, trying to pull productivity out of every open space and asking the people closest to me to live on whatever attention, patience, and energy remains. So every individual commitment may fit. The whole arrangement can still be unwise. So maybe the question isn't only, can I make this fit? Maybe it's, what will this cost? And who's going to pay for it? Hey, this is Jonathan, counselor at Sound Mind, professor at Living Faith Bible Institute, and a pastor right here in Kansas City at Midtown Baptist Temple. And this is Sound Mind, where we take a deeper look at life through a biblical lens. This is the third episode in a series called Stewarding the Good. In the first episode, we talked about letting the good land, learning to recognize, receive, and remember what God has already given us. In the second episode, we talked about deepening joy by remaining in the love of Christ instead of constantly reaching out for more. And today, we're talking about making room for what matters. This episode is difficult for me because I'm not approaching it as someone who has mastered his calendar. I'm approaching it as someone who can make almost anything fit and is slowly learning that fitting isn't the same thing as wisdom. Every individual commitment can make sense while the whole arrangement is still taking me somewhere I don't want to go. The goal isn't an empty calendar, it's an ordered life. All right, let's do this. The difficult thing about a full schedule is that most of the individual pieces can be defended. This person really does need help. That meeting does matter. The work needs to get finished. The opportunity may actually be good. The family needs something. Church needs something. The house always needs something. And I can usually explain every yes. That's part of what makes this such a struggle for me. I'm rarely looking at my calendar thinking, why did I agree to all of these completely pointless things? Usually I'm looking at a collection of responsibilities, people, and opportunities that truly matter to me. But at some point, I have to step back and look at the whole thing, because every individual commitment may make sense while the collective schedule is still unwise. Everything may fit on the calendar, but that doesn't mean it fits inside the life God has given me. And I think that's where Ephesians 5 helps us. Paul says in verse 15 through 17, "See then that you walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise, redeeming the time, because the days are evil. Wherefore be ye not unwise, but understanding what the will of the Lord is." I think we sometimes hear that phrase, redeeming the time, and immediately turn it into a Christian productivity system. Don't waste a minute. Wake up early, work harder, and answer your emails while brushing your teeth. Listen to a sermon at double speed while folding laundry and returning a phone call. But Paul's concern here isn't how much we can cram into a day. His concern is how we walk. Throughout Ephesians, he keeps using that word, walk worthy, walk in love, walk as children of light. And here he says, walk circumspectly. That word carries this idea of walking carefully, deliberately, paying attention to where your feet are going because the path matters. And Paul begins with, "See then." So he's saying, look, pay attention, stop long enough to examine how you're actually living. Because schedules usually become disordered through accumulation. We don't sit down and decide, I'm going to become emotionally unavailable to my family. I'm going to ignore my health. I'm going to push my walk with God into whatever scraps of time remain. No, we just say yes to one more thing, then another and another and another. And each decision seems manageable in that moment. Each one has a good explanation. Then one day we look up and we realize there's no room left for the life all of those commitments we're supposed to support. That's why Paul says, not as fools, but as wise. The contrast isn't busy people versus people who have nothing to do. It isn't color-coded calendar people versus people who forget where they're supposed to be. No, the contrast is foolishness and wisdom. You can be busy and wise. You can walk through a demanding season faithfully. You can also have an organized calendar and a disordered life. Everything can work perfectly on paper while the actual arrangement is making you hurried or irritable or divided and just unavailable. So, the question can't only be, can I fit this in? That's usually where my mind goes. Can I squeeze this meeting into that gap? Can I take one more counseling session? Can I record this after my kids go to bed? Or can I wake up at the crack of dawn and try to do some jumping jacks so my voice doesn't sound like Darth Vader? Can I respond to this message before I walk inside? Can I make it work? And with enough creativity, I usually can. You can make almost anything fit if you try hard enough. Wisdom, though, it asks a different question. What will this displace? Who's going to absorb the cost? What version of me will be present when I actually get there? Will saying yes here make it harder to remain faithful to something God has already entrusted to me? Man, then Paul says this, redeeming the time. That phrase carries more than simply use your time well. The word Paul uses has this idea of buying something out of the marketplace, taking hold of it, claiming it before it is lost. And the word translated time is not just talking about minutes passing on a clock. It's talking about an opportunity, a season, a particular moment that has been placed in front of you. So Paul's not saying, make sure every minute produces something. He's saying, pay attention to the opportunities God has given you and don't let them be swallowed up by foolishness or distraction or the evil of the age. Redeeming the time means recognizing what this moment is actually for. Sometimes redeeming the time looks like getting the work done. Sometimes it looks like prayer. Sometimes it looks like sitting at the table long enough for the conversation to go somewhere. Sometimes it looks like just getting on the floor and playing with your kids. And other times it looks like stopping to listen to somebody when it would be easier to keep going. Sometimes it looks like leaving 15 minutes between commitments so one delay doesn't turn you into a lunatic. And sometimes it looks like saying no to a good opportunity because it would pull you away from the work God has already given you. And the value of a moment is not determined only by output. It's determined by faithfulness. The question is not only, what did I accomplish? The question is, did I recognize what this moment was for? Did I use this opportunity according to wisdom? Did I give myself to what God had actually placed in front of me? Because it is possible to fill every hour and still miss the opportunity. Martha was busy serving while Mary recognized the moment to sit at the feet of Jesus. Nehemiah was invited to come down from the wall, but he understood that accepting the invitation would pull him away from the work God had already given him. Redeeming the time is not doing everything that could be done. It's discerning what faithfulness requires in the season that you're actually in. And Paul says we are to live this way because the days are evil. The world around us will rarely tell us we've done enough. There's always more to build, more to grow, to optimize, more people to reach, more money to make, more opportunities to accept, more ways to remain available. And if we're not careful, the spirit of the age will purchase our opportunities before we ever decide what they're meant for. Our days will be consumed by hurry. Our attention will be consumed by distraction. Our energy will be consumed by the endless demand. And the relationships and responsibilities God has actually entrusted to us will receive whatever happens to be left. And this is why I think Paul, he doesn't end with productivity. He ends with discernment. Understanding what the will of the Lord is. See, redeeming the time means looking at the season, looking at the opportunity and the people in front of you and asking, what is the will of God here? What has He actually given me to do? What needs to be protected? What needs to be released? What opportunity is present right now that I may not have forever? Because listen, wisdom is not learning how to force everything into your calendar. Wisdom is recognizing what this season is for and refusing to let lesser things consume it. Some of us don't need a better system. We need to admit the season has changed. All right. And that's harder than it sounds because a lot of us keep scheduling for a version of ourselves that doesn't currently even exist. The version with more energy, the version with fewer responsibilities, the version of you who could stay up late and still function like a normal human being the next day. And for me, that was the version before kids, or before grief, or before the job changed, or the ministry grew, before the body started sending warning lights. Man, before life got so complicated. Now, I'm gonna sound old for a second, but it's actually insane to me to think about on how much free time I had when I was younger. I remember being in college and feeling absolutely overwhelmed by my schedule. I'd be like, I have 3 classes today. 3! Not 9 hours of meetings, not counseling sessions stacked back to back, not a mortgage-related phone call, 6 unread texts, a kid who can't find his shoes, and an email that starts with just circling back. 3 classes. And then I'd have intramural ultimate frisbee in the afternoon, a Bible study at night, and suddenly I was acting like my life was packed. Like, I don't know how I'm gonna make this work. I may only be able to skateboard with my friends after dinner for like 45 minutes, and I might have to skip the bonfire. Just a brutal season. And listen, if you're in college, I am not throwing shade. I'm not saying your life isn't hard. I know it can be, but if I had a time machine, I would go back like Biff and Back to the Future, and instead of handing my younger self a sports almanac, I'd just say, hey man, this is a special amount of free time. You should maybe enjoy this. Also, your knees are currently working. Be grateful, and doing a kickflip will become less important as you age. That is all. Because seasons change, capacity changes, responsibilities change. And if we don't acknowledge that, we end up trying to live our current life with an old calendar. Psalm 90:12 says, "So teach us to number our days, that we may apply our hearts unto wisdom." Moses isn't asking God to make him frantic. He's asking God to make him wise, to teach us to remember that our lives are finite. Teach us to stop acting like we have endless time and endless chances or endless margin or capacity. Teach us to live honestly inside the life we actually have been given. That means I have to ask, what season am I actually in? What's changed that my schedule hasn't acknowledged? What am I trying to prove by maintaining this pace? What expectation belongs to an earlier season? Because sometimes the problem isn't that you're lazy. Sometimes the problem is that your schedule was built for a version of your life that no longer exists. And wisdom starts when we stop pretending. This is the life God has given me right now. These are the people in front of me. These are the responsibilities that are actually mine. These are the limits I keep trying to outrun. So before we can make room for what matters, we have to see the schedule we're actually living. Not the one we wish we had, not the one we used to have, not the one impressive people online seem to have. The real one. Because you can't steward a season you can't name. right, listen. A priority that's never protected is often just an intention. That sentence bothers me because it's possible to deeply love something and still give it whatever is left. I love the Lord. I want to walk with Him. I don't want communion with God to get shoved into the margins of life I've filled with work done in His name. I love my wife. I want to be present with her. I want to enjoy her. I want to walk with her in a way that isn't just exchanging information about schedules and kids and food and money and who's picking up what. I love my kids. I want to instruct them in the way that they should go. I want to enjoy them. I want to be emotionally available when they want to tell me something that to them is extremely urgent and to me sounds like a 12-minute explanation of some kind of Star Wars Lego universe. But this is where it gets uncomfortable because I can love them deeply and still build a life that makes it hard to show up for them in the moments I actually have. That's the part that hits me. The people closest to us often receive the version of us that survived everything else. And I don't like saying that out loud because I don't want my family to get the exhausted remains of a person. I don't want my wife to get this distracted version of me. I don't want my kids to feel like they're competing with counseling and ministry and teaching and podcast work and text and emails and whatever problems I'm trying to solve in my head while I'm technically in the room. Now, I do think it's good for my kids to see me work hard. I think that is huge. I want my boys to understand that work is good and that responsibility is good and providing for your family is good. Serving people is good. There are times dads have to leave the house, go to work, help people study and preach and counsel and build and do hard things even when he's tired. That's not bad for them to see at all. They don't need a dad who's available every second of the day. But they do need a dad who is truly there when he's there. And that's the battle. There are moments when I'm home, but my mind is still somewhere else. I'm replaying a counseling session. I'm thinking through a sermon. I'm answering a text. I'm trying to get one more thing finished. And then I get another notification and my little girl reaches over and physically takes my phone away from me. And that is a gut punch because she's not giving me a lecture on digital boundaries. She's not even 2. She just knows dad is looking at the rectangle again. And I hate that. I don't want that to be normal. I don't want my kids to feel like they have to pull me away from my own life in order to get my attention. And listen, I am not saying that from a place of having conquered it. I'm saying that as something I am currently fighting. And I'm determined to win that fight. Not perfectly, but deliberately, because what matters has to be protected. My family can't just get whatever is left after everyone else has had access to me. My walk with God can't live in the imaginary quiet space that I assume will appear sometime down the road. My body can't keep being treated like a machine that should function no matter how little rest or movement or recovery I get. This is where margin matters. Margin isn't wasted space, although oftentimes my brain calculates it like that. Margin is where love, flexibility, recovery, and patience live. A schedule without margin only works if nobody needs anything unexpected and nothing takes longer than planned, or your body never gets tired, your kids never ask a question at the wrong time, and traffic doesn't exist. So basically, it works nowhere. When every minute is already spoken for, people start to feel like interruptions. That is a warning light. If normal human need constantly feels like an obstacle to my productivity, I may not only have a patience problem, I may have a margin problem. Wisdom asks, what must remain protected? Who keeps getting the leftover version of me? What spiritual rhythm have I pushed into a gap that never actually arrives? What does my body keep telling me that my calendar refuses to hear? Where am I calling something faithfulness when it's actually overextension? Your calendar doesn't have to give everything equal time. That's not real life. Some seasons require more work. Some seasons require sacrifice. Some weeks are going to be full. But the most important thing in your life cannot continually survive on whatever's left. Make room for what matters before what matters is forced to live on leftovers. This may be the hardest part for me, because when you care about people, need feels powerful. Someone needs counseling. Someone wants to meet. A ministry opportunity opens. There's a project I believe could really help people. A message comes through and I know I could probably do something. My mind immediately starts rearranging the furniture. Could I squeeze this in? Could I move this over there? Could I do it early in the morning or after the kids go to bed? Could I carry one more thing if I just became slightly more efficient? And sometimes the answer should be yes. Love costs something. Serving people will inconvenience us. Following Christ isn't about constructing a life where nobody can interrupt us or ask anything difficult of us. But need isn't the same thing as assignment. That's hard for me to accept because I can be needed in more places than I'm called to serve. This often comes up for me just even here at the house. I work from home quite a bit, and over the years, I've perfected my moving through my house like a ninja. I'll wake up early before anybody else is awake and sneak downstairs and start working in my office. Then I realize I left my headphones upstairs, or maybe I need a coffee or something. So now I have to make this massive decision. Do I risk going upstairs? Because if one of my children sees me, it is over. They actually do this. They form a human barricade in front of the stairs like some kind of protest. Play with us. Dad, will you play swords? Can we go outside and play hockey? Look at this. Watch this. Then my little girl comes bounding around the corner. Daddy's girl. She says daddy's girl when she sees me. How am I supposed to say no to that? So I'm trying to quietly move through my own home without being detected by the people I helped create. I feel like a terrible human. I'm hiding behind walls, checking whether the hallway is clear, trying to retrieve a cup of coffee without triggering a whole full family reunion. But it shows, doesn't it? How powerful demand can feel. And my kids aren't the problem in this story. They're often the very people I'm trying to protect by working early. Sometimes the most faithful thing is to stay focused and finish the work. And sometimes the most faithful thing is to stop and play swords. And the challenge for me is discerning which moment I'm in instead of automatically responding to whichever demand is loudest. Mark 1 gives us a much deeper picture of that. Jesus gets up super early and goes to a solitary place and prays. Simon and the others come searching for him. When they find him, they say, "All men seek for thee." Everybody's looking for you, Jesus. There are people waiting. There's a demand. There's momentum. And something in me responds strongly to that sentence. All men seek for thee. People need you. You're useful. You're wanted. Don't lose the opportunity. Don't disappoint them. But Jesus doesn't allow the crowd's demand to determine his direction. He says, "Let us go into the next town, that I may preach there also. For therefore came I forth." Jesus cared about the people that were looking for him, but he wasn't controlled by the fact that they were looking. He remained clear about what the Father had given him to do. And this is where I have to remember something fairly obvious. Jesus is the Savior. I'm a servant. A servant listens for assignments. A Savior assumes responsibility for everything. There will always be another person who needs counseling, another conversation at church, another message, another opportunity to teach or create or lead or help. There are more meaningful things I could give myself to than I could possibly carry well. And when I forget that, being capable starts feeling like being responsible. If I can do it, maybe I should. If I know how to help, maybe I have to. If the door opened, maybe God must want me to walk through it. But an open door is still just an open door. It requires wisdom. Sometimes my schedule exposes that I've started living like everything depends on me. I say yes because I don't want someone to be disappointed. I say yes because I like being dependable. I say yes because I'm afraid the opportunity won't come back. And sometimes I say yes because being needed makes me feel valuable. That's uncomfortable to admit. Helping people can be an act of love. It can also become a place where I quietly build my identity. So then when I say no, it's not only declining a responsibility, it feels like becoming less important. But my value isn't determined by the number of people who need access to me. My faithfulness isn't measured by how many needs I can personally carry. Nehemiah understood that when people tried to pull him away from rebuilding the wall, he said, "I am doing a great work so that I cannot come down." He wasn't saying nothing else in the world mattered. He was saying, I know what God has entrusted to me here, and I can't leave it every time someone asks for access to me. So then sometimes I cannot come down means I can't add another client without taking something important from my family. I can't accept this opportunity and still give proper attention to what I've already agreed to. I can't respond to every message the moment it arrives. I can't keep treating sleep like an optional activity. I care about this, but it isn't mine to carry. That sentence can feel super harsh when the need is real, but every yes is also a no. A yes to one opportunity may become a no to dinner with my family, a no to prayer, a no to patience, a no to the emotional capacity required by the people already in my care. The opportunity may still be good. It just may not be mine. So, before I say yes, I need to ask, am I responding from conviction or shame? Does this fit the season I'm actually in? What existing responsibility will absorb the cost? Am I accepting this because God has given it to me, or because I'm afraid of what it means to let it pass? Faithfulness isn't doing every good thing that could be done. It's giving yourself to the work God has actually entrusted to you. You can care deeply and still say no. You can recognize a need without assuming you're the answer. You can be a faithful servant without trying to become everybody's savior. All right, I don't want to end this episode by giving you 12 more things to add to your schedule. That would kind of feel like we missed the whole point. So here's the practice. Look at the next 7 days, not your entire life, not the next 6 months, just the week in front of you, and ask, what's one thing I can remove or shorten or delegate, move or decline? Maybe the answer isn't eliminating something completely. Maybe the meeting needs to be 30 minutes instead of an hour. Maybe the work needs to move to a time when you actually have energy to do it. Maybe somebody else can carry part of it. Maybe you need to leave one evening open. Or maybe you need to stop assuming you'll finish everything after the kids go to bed as though bedtime is a magical second workday where you suddenly become alert and creative and emotionally stable. Choose one adjustment, then finish this sentence. I'm changing blank so that I can protect blank. The second blank there matters. The goal isn't simply to do less. The goal is to make room for what matters. I'm shortening this meeting so I can be present for dinner. I'm moving the work block so I'm not giving creative work the most exhaustive version of myself. I'm declining this opportunity so I can remain faithful to something I've already agreed to carry. I'm leaving this space open so one unexpected need doesn't control the entire day. I'm putting my phone away because my kids shouldn't have to form a human barricade to get my attention. One change, one thing protected. Start there. Your calendar can't hold everything. It was never meant to, and I think part of what makes this so painful is that choosing always involves some loss. When you say no to an opportunity, you lose the version of the future where it might have become something significant. When you limit your availability, somebody may be disappointed. When you acknowledge your capacity, you may have to release the version of yourself who could supposedly handle all of it. You may grow more slowly. You may earn less. You may be less visible. Some good things may pass without you. All of that is real, but every meaningful yes requires us to accept some no. Wisdom isn't the ability to fit everything. It's the ability to release what is lesser without losing what is most important. Jesus said in John 17:4, I have glorified thee on the earth. I have finished the work which thou gavest me to do. I love the clarity of that. Jesus didn't say he personally met every need that existed. There will still be sick people, hurting people, still towns he hadn't visited, still people asking for access to him, but he finished the work the Father gave him. That is faithfulness. And that's freeing for me. God hasn't asked me to be everywhere. He hasn't asked me to help everyone. He hasn't asked me to take every opportunity and carry every need or prove my value through endless usefulness. He's asked me to walk carefully, to understand His will, to remain faithful to the life and work He's actually entrusted to me. Your calendar can become more than a record of where your time disappeared. It can become an expression of what you choose to steward, what you refuse to lose, and who you trusted enough to release the rest to. So look at the week ahead. Change one thing, protect one thing, and make room for what matters before what matters is forced to live on what's left. If this episode brought something specific to mind, take a look at the next 7 days. Choose one thing to remove, shorten, move, delegate, or decline. Then finish that sentence. I am changing blank so that I can protect blank. The goal isn't to build a perfect life. It's to walk carefully, to make room for what God has already entrusted to you. If you missed the first 2 episodes in this series, Stewarding the Good, go back and listen to Let the Good Land and Deepen the Joy. If you or someone you love needs more structured help, you can reach out at soundmind.live. We'd be glad to help you find biblical counseling near you. You can also follow the podcast on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube. Just search Sound Mind. We're always posting clips and reminders right in the middle of your week. And if this episode was helpful, take a minute and rate and review the show. It really does help people find their way here. And for more thoughtful biblical conversations, check out the postscript. You can search the postscript wherever you listen. And if you want to know the Bible for yourself, do yourself a favor, check out Living Faith Bible Institute at lfbi.org. You can sign up for fall classes right now. I would love to have you in class. This fall, we have the Intro to Biblical Counseling class as well as Counseling Lab 1. Please join me this fall. Thanks for listening. Until next time, take care.